And a very good afternoon, Phuket. This is Nick Anthony, and I'm in the studio here in Billionaire Plaza in Phuket Town, live 89.5. And with me in the studio is Antoine Mellon, the GM of Trisara. Antoine, very nice to see you.
Good afternoon.
It's a great pleasure to have Antoine here. He's the new GM of Trisara, although not new to Trisara, I must say. Mm-hmm. Antoine, tell us about yourself a little bit. How long you've been on Phuket and what brought you here?
Well, I've been in Phuket for nearly 2 years. And really enjoying it. It's what brought me here. Interesting. It's I was in the Maldives, just opened a new resort, and the opportunity to become the resort manager of Trisara came out, and I thought that was an amazing opportunity for me. And me and my wife, we came and live in Phuket since that. And recently had the opportunity to take over from Anthony Lark, who I'm sure a lot of listeners know very well. I've been in Phuket for a long time, and take over after him for general manager of Trisara since last month.
That's very exciting. Now, for listeners out there, tell us a little bit about Trisara.
We are obviously a resort hotel, luxury boutique resort hotel with a private beach. We've got amazing ocean view pool villa. I mean, one of our characteristics is that every single villa has its ocean view on its own pool, which is unique in Phuket. We've been open now for 9 years. We are between Lion and Nighton, so we're quite separate from the other hotels. Very private. I think privacy is one of our unique selling point, we're very proud to be privately owned by Thai family. We're only 2 expats among 300 staff, and we have an amazing ratio of 7 employees per key, which is very high in this industry.
Very good. And Trisara, of course, is very local friendly to all you people listening here on Phuket. And they love locals, so do go check it out. Go have a drink at the bar. Try their breakfasts are amazing. Sunday brunches are wonderful. What time's the Sunday brunch tomorrow, Antoine?
Tomorrow Sunday brunch, we have a few seats left. We're almost fully booked. We open from 11:30 to 3:30. We do a jazz Sunday brunch every Sunday since the last 3 years. And I definitely recommend it. If you never try it, you should, because it's a great place to enjoy Phuket. And you're all welcome to stay after, enjoy the beach, have a swim in a beautiful pool, and chill out during the day in the hotel.
Now tell me, Trisara in Sanskrit stands for?
The third garden in heaven.
Sounds very apt, given that we're talking about going green. On today's show, we're going to be talking with Antoine specifically about Trisara. Some of the groundbreaking things they've been doing over the last 9 years since they started. They have a very strong CSR component, very careful with waste, with water, and all aspects of particularly CSR. They also have been a part of the Nighton Green Club, more recently that's been formed this year, although I've been working with them now for the last 4 years and supporting cleanups on the northern part of Phuket, particularly Nighton Beach. Nick Franklin over at CBR has pulled together the Nighton Green Club, and just like Kamala, it's rolling out full-time beach cleaners and working very well with the local community. And I must say, Antoine, over the years that I've worked with Trisara, they've always been very keen, very fast on the draw and getting involved with whatever initiatives we've taken on here in Phuket.
Yeah, well, we saw the opportunity of the Green Club in Nighton, even of course if our guests don't really use Nighton Beach, but being the closest public beach to us, I think it was very important to show support to the other hotelier, to the community, and we've been very supportive and sent our team to help the Green Club to clean the beach, and hopefully we'll be able to invest some beans and educational. I think that's the biggest part, because even if we do some cleaning, sometimes doesn't really solve the solution in the long term. I think education is the most important part of it.
You know, talking of that education, with a hotel with 300 employees, actually hotels have a huge part to play in Phuket in educating local residents here on Phuket about trash, about littering, about waste management, about water, all the things that are very close to your heart for the hotel are also very close to the hearts of the people that work with you. And we're seeing much greater impact coming through because of this wide-scale, now Phuket Island-wide effort to educate staff about sustainability And of course, it's a journey, and we're all a part of it.
Exactly. No, definitely.
Very good. Stay tuned. This is Nick Anthony. I'm with Antoine Mellon. He's the GM of Trisara, and we're talking about hotel sustainability and initiatives here on Phuket. And a very good afternoon, Phuket. Welcome back to the Going Green Show. Show number 81. Nick Anthony here in the studio here in Phuket Town on Live 89.5 with Antoine Mellon, the GM from Trisara. Antoine, welcome back in.
Thank you.
Actually, I did have Anthony Lark on the show maybe 6 months ago, but I got him on the phone. I did try to get him in the studio. We had him on the phone. Let's talk briefly about some big picture strategies of hotels with respect to going green and with respect to green processes. I was reading an article that stressed what's called the 4 pillars of a hotel success. The first one being economic viability, goes without saying. You have to be viable, have to create value, and you have to make profit, without which, of course, you can't grow and you can't pay your employees. The second is, of course, a planning, organization, and a leadership, and a vision. That's something that your hotels always had, a very honest approach to dealing with employees. You have very effective education and information campaigns, I know, within the hotel for establishing environmental and sustainable platforms. And I'm aware of the CSR efforts that the hotel's been making with employees. How does the environmental planning come into Trisara for you now as a new GM? And what sort of importance do you stress on environmental planning?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I was lucky that when Anthony built the hotel, from day one, they thought about how they could reduce the impact on the environment. And that's the reason a lot of the M&E decision were based on that. I mean, examples is obviously the land was just a jungle at that time, and all the location of the villa was based on the fact that we didn't want to remove any tree. So we positioned in the villa with a view not to cut any beautiful tree that we had on property. Then all the vegetation was removed from the property and put in a nursery for 2 years to continue to grow, and then put back when all the work was finished on the resort.
So promotion of local species and existing species.
Avoid deforestation, which happens a lot when you have tourist development like that. Then decision like collection of rainwater from every single roof around the resort. I mean, there's a few hotels nowadays, but I think at that time we were one of the first one to start. So we collect rainwater from every single roof, which is obviously then reused for gardening, which is a very important decision. We built the treatment water plant, which a lot of hotels nowadays do that at a second stage, but we did initially. So which means all our recycled water, what we call grey water, is again used for watering all the plant. I mean, we've got 50 hectares of land, so that's very important to be able to use water that natural source without having to buy it or to import it.
Do you still use your water table? Do you have wells on site?
No, unfortunately, we still don't have the city water, so we use water truck. But one of the initiatives I had when I arrived from past experience, I saw that we were using 250,000 bottles of plastic bottles. And in the Maldives, I saw that system called reverse osmosis. So we installed that last year. And since that, we stopped completely to use plastic bottles. We make our own water. It's a very simple system, and it's a small investment, which has an ROI of 10 months. So it's very convincing.
Wow, under 1 year payback. It's amazing. How many water bottles now have you quit using? How many were you using per year?
Well, we stopped 250,000
plastic water bottles.
We use 2,000 bottles of glass bottles with Trisara label, which is free of charge for our guests. It's always been. And funny enough, hasn't been any complaint, and actually, obviously, people are curious. We even show the water plant to people to show, which are very interesting about it, and I hope that people will follow. And I'm more than happy to share the figures and the supplier and so on. But I think it's one of the best decisions to take for all the hotels when we realize that plastic is one of the worst thing in terms of pollution. And we have so many hotels around Phuket that use only plastic, of course, for water.
It's amazing. I'm just running some numbers in my head. Think about 50 hotels or 100 hotels on Phuket that use equivalent amounts of plastic water bottles, and we're talking millions and millions of plastic water bottles per year. Definitely one of our biggest problems. I don't know if you're aware, but the actual plastic that's being recycled on Phuket until recently was sent to China for post-recycling. And they were using the empty containers that were coming from imported goods to Thailand and shipping it back into China for recycling. But China has just stopped that process globally. Even in America, around 30% of plastic that was being recycled was being sent to China for recycling. And now where China's put up what's called a green wall and said that we're not taking these contaminated water bottles anymore, and you've got to deal with it in your own country.
Yeah, China was known as the rubbish bin of the rest of the world, and obviously now they're developing at a very fast pace, and they don't want to be considered like that. So I think this great initiative, and actually I think we are all impressed by the fact that China is taking the lead in terms of green initiatives.
China is definitely moving up the curve. Later in the show, in a second, I'll be talking about plastics. There's some new information out on plastics in the oceans, and I'll be talking about some of the volumes that's been collected off Phuket's beaches. Stay tuned. This is Nick Anthony. I'm talking with Antoine Mellon in the studio about Trisara and sustainable hotels.
Live 89.5, your island, your station.
Good afternoon, Phuket. Welcome back to the Going Green, show number 81. I'm here in the studio with Antoine Mellon. He's the GM at Trisara up at Nighton Beach. And if you're listening and haven't been up there, they're very local friendly, so do go up and enjoy a nice breakfast, a great lunch, or even a fancy dinner. Antoine, let's talk about getting back to our 4 pillars of best practice for a hotel. One of the pillars is the social responsibility aspect of a resort, your people, of course. But not only that, these days social responsibility is more about integration with the community than purely working within the confines of your own walls of the resort and thinking that's as much a responsibility as a resort should manage. I think a great example has been these green clubs that have been springing up, and in your area, the support of the Nighton Green Club, how that is getting staff into the local community. I have a lovely story about how when we did the first meeting for our Nighton Green Club, when Kun Neres from Trisara was there, and a lady put up a hand and said, we're having a tough time getting local government support for our initiatives, whether it be collection of the garbage that's on the beach that we do collect, whether it's cleaning up bins after they've been collected, or indeed just trying to get more local support to protect our environment in Nighton Beach. And so I said, well, we're finding that the Puyai, the local village chief, is often the one that has a big heart and has a real sense of responsibility for his local area. And there were some smiles in the room. And I said, is there something that I said? And they said, well, actually, we've got the wife of the Puyai in the room. And so we had a great cross-representation in that meeting. I think there were only 3 foreigners and the other 40 people, all local Thais. It included beach restaurants. Even the taxi guys came up for it. And we had representatives from the Puyai, from the Orbitor. It was a very well-attended event, which for Nighton is a very small community.
Yes.
And so it's great to see that sort of support from hotels like yours, bringing these experiences and sharing these experiences to help Phuket be a better place. And of course, without that, 4 years ago, we were looking down the barrel of a highly degenerative island that was getting into a situation of waste crisis, litter crisis. We had a crisis in our oceans with the coral bleaching, overfishing. It was some people said past the tipping point already. Some people still say Phuket is past the tipping point. But the experience that I've had in the last year or so, it tells me that there's a lot of people that do care. How are you finding your staff? Are they getting more involved in this sort of program? You're finding that they're getting more interested. They want to learn. They're getting hungry for knowledge.
Yes, I think so. When we went for the first cleaning of Nighton Beach with the Green Club, we didn't have to force any staff. I mean, they came without pressure from us. They were very happy to do it. I saw unfortunately I was not there, but I saw beautiful pictures of the staff mixed with the local on other hotels. There was no tension about competition. It was just a group of people that care for the environment, care for their islands, being proud of having a beautiful environment here, and making sure that we keep it at its best. I mean, Green Club is a great initiative. We just need to make sure we get more and more people involved and support it. And the educational part is the most important side of it, because it's not a few people just having a great idea. We need to make sure that it goes from top to bottom and vice versa. That's why we want to make sure that all our staff embrace it, and we want to invite Kun Nok from Sikh, who's used to be a park ranger, you told me, and the idea is for her to come and talk to all our staff, different sessions, and explain the reason we're trying to do that, and why is it important, and the consequences of the rubbish in the sea, the turtle, the dolphin, the life, the water life that is disappearing, unfortunately, and all the impact it's got.
Yesterday I was up in Maikau Beach, and the locals up there told me that they saw dolphins last week off Maikau Beach.
Wow.
There are 2 dolphins. I haven't seen them up at Maikau. I have seen them up in Similans, and I've seen them before in Surin Beach and also off Kata Beach, off your boathouse. But I haven't seen them up at Maikau Beach, so that was quite amazing. And they also said that last week a huge leatherback, we're talking something like 2 meters long, came up also on Maikau Beach and laid eggs. It's been one of those rare occurrences. 10, 12 years ago, they used to come on a regular basis. But with all the development and the lights and the movement dogs, etc., they get shy and they don't come in. But good news, at least, that we've seen dolphins off Maikau Beach in our area.
I know it's funny because our company that owns Trissar is called Three Dolphins. And the reason is when our owner came to visit the land with his business partners, they actually saw 3 dolphins swimming off the water of what is now Trissar. And I was very excited when I joined. I thought, wow, I'm going to be able to see dolphin in front of the hotel like we had in the Maldives. Unfortunately, in 2 years, I've never seen any.
There we are. Keep your eyes peeled. It does go to show, though, that the planet, environmental protection from all of our businesses, hotels, have a great responsibility to ensure that no litter and trash goes into the oceans. Dolphins eat these plastic bags, as do turtles. Turtles think that they're jellyfish, so they eat them. They get stuck in their stomach, and as a result, they don't have any room to take any food, so effectively starve to death. We've also saw 2 turtles 2 weeks ago ended up on Nanyang Beach, tangled up in some fishing rope, which was very sad. But there are marine animals still. Some people say surprisingly on our coastline here in the Andaman Sea. So environmental education, environmental consciousness, care and protection actually are no longer an option for us. They must become an integral part of our organizations, our institutions, our culture, and as much our core daily life practices.
I've got a good story as well. We have an ecosystem very special to Trissar. I believe we're the only beach on the island that's got hermit crab, and we are infested, but in a nice way. In the morning at sunrise and also in the evening at sunset, the beach is completely covered of beautiful hermit crab, and it's so interesting that we have a lot of requests from communal school that ask us if they can come, and we obviously welcome them to visit our beach to see that special ecosystem that's unique to the island. And I think by showing them that there's so beautiful things like that happening, it's helping in making sure that they understand the beauty that we've got in Phuket, and ensuring that we keep cleaning it and taking out the rubbish, and continue to support green clubs and all the similar initiatives.
Very good. The plastic this year, I think, has been reduced from our own experience around 30%, year on year, largely because the Orbajor is now cleaning roadsides twice a month, and that's taking up all the trash out of the drains. And so when it does rain, much less trash going into the oceans. In Kamala, we're going to put a boom across the Klongs to limit the amount of trash also going into Kamala Bay. That'll be a pilot program for Phuket. And eventually, I expect we'll see them on all Klongs on the west coast of Phuket. But the issue of beach cleaning has been a very difficult one. It's obviously very management intensive. It's very hard to sometimes know when the trash comes. It's not exactly every day. Sometimes it's one day and then doesn't come for a week. But the approach that is required is, in fact, full-time beach cleaners. And we've been piloting a program in Kamala where we're putting 2 people on full-time. They're paid by the hotels. They're employed by the Orbitor, so by the local government. And so we get this knowledge transfer from Seek and the Kamala Green Club to the Orbitor. They're responsible for cleaning the beach then daily, and we take away the financial burden of that. We had the governor last Saturday came to Kamala. I talked about it a bit on the show last week, and he was very impressed with what was happening in Kamala with that Green Club. And so the idea is now to roll out exactly the same strategy to get full-time beach cleaners across the entire West Coast. And if we can actually take it out of the oceans and we can ensure that our beaches are clean every day, then we're going to do better with tourism, we're going to keep our oceans cleaner, and hopefully support our marine life.
Great initiative.
Fingers crossed. Let's get that happening soon. This is Nick Anthony. You're listening to Antoine Mellon. This is Nick Anthony. I'm in the studio with Antoine Mellon. This is the Going Green Show, show number 81. We've been talking about Trisara, talking about sustainable hoteliers, and looking at programs that are making Phuket a better place. We've just been talking offline about Trisara's seafood restaurant, which I must say, having tasted it, is fantastic. Got to be one of the best restaurants in this part of the world. But before we talk about that, let me just backtrack a little bit. You have some experience as a restaurateur.
Yes, very much so. I open a few restaurants around the world, and I run a few in different cities. I've worked already in 11 countries, so my background is mainly restaurateur and food and beverage director.
You used to own some restaurants?
Yes.
Got Michelin stars?
Yeah, nearly. They didn't have Michelin star, but they were in the Michelin Guide
okay,
as a recommended restaurant.
Very good. And how was that as an experience?
Oh, great. I mean, I'm in this industry because at 7 years old, my parents brought me to a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Lyon called Paul Bocuse. And Lyon is my the city I was born, my hometown. And I had the full degustation menu. And then at the end of dinner, this huge man came up, all dressed in white. The tallest man I ever seen in my life. He had a huge white hat. And he was the owner, Paul Bocuse, the famous guy that he's the only chef that had 3 Michelin stars for more than 25 years or 30 years, I believe. He's now 83 and still goes around his restaurant every night. And he offered me a small replica of the car he was using to go to the supermarket to choose the vegetables and the product every morning. I was so impressed. Instead of become a juror like the 5th generation of my family, I became a restaurateur hotelier and thought this is what I wanted to do. So since that, I've always been passionate about food, about a restaurant, the environment. And so here we go, 20 few years later, I'm in Phuket running a beautiful hotel. And I was lucky to given the opportunity to choose the concept for the new restaurant we opened in Trisara 6 months ago, which is called Trisara Seafood. Of course, having been in Phuket for a few months, I realized that seafood was a very attractive part of the island, using local product. There's a lot of seafood restaurants around the island. However, I thought that most of them were very basic in terms of the surrounding, the design, the service, even if the product were very good. So I decided to do a bit more sophisticated restaurant for the 5-star guest. Not only ours, but also around the islands. We're more than welcome anybody from other hotels as well as Phuket residents. And so we're doing a mix of local seafood, which is sustainable. So we don't take any fish that is of risk of extinction. So no red tuna, no Alaskan crab and all that kind of animals. Unfortunately, like shark fin, which we just parked now. Recently, we signed with the Fin-Free Thailand, making sure that we don't serve any shark fin ingredients.
There's a good article on that in this weekend's Phuket News.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so well done for signing that.
And then, so we use only sustainable fish. We of own line caught, no farm fish in the seafood restaurant, which I think is very important. Unfortunately, farm fish, even if it's unfortunately what it looks like we're gonna have to eat in the future, they use a lot of how do you say?
A lot of chemicals, whatever.
Chemicals and medicines to feed the fish, and it's definitely not good for your body. And we know as well there's a lot of metal in the fish nowadays in the sea. So we have beautiful product. We also do some imported fish to get offered some cold water fish.
Mm-hmm.
And all our team is Thai, and we were supported by one of our guest chefs that came as a visitor, Marco Vesmas from Holland, which definitely from Michelin star background. And we are proud to, we believe, offer one of the best tables on Phuket Island. We're now number 3 on TripAdvisor among 1,400 restaurants. So if you haven't been yet, go to Trisara Seafood, call us. We open for dinner, on lunch and dinner from November onwards. So please come and try and let us know what you think.
There we are. Thank you very much. Antoine, stay with us. We're going to roll into the second hour and finish off the conversation talking about some waste management and other issues that Trisara are doing. Welcome back to the Going Green Show, show number 81. Time is 4:12 in the afternoon. Hope you're having a great day. We're here in the studio in Phuket Town, and I'm with Antoine Mellon, who's the GM from Trisara. If you haven't been listening, we've been talking about the resort's strategies on going green, how they're changing also systems within the hotel, how they've in fact been green-wise from day one of the resort's planning through to implementation of things such as rainwater harvesting and all sorts of good things in the hotel, including sustainable seafood. But one of the things I do want to talk about with Antoine is waste. Here on Phuket, we're currently in the midst of a waste management crisis. Currently in Phuket, it's producing over 700 tons of waste per day that must either be landfilled or incinerated. Well, of course, incineration has massive infrastructure and energy requirements, as well as creates hazardous gases and carbon emissions during operation. Landfills never disappear, also create hazardous and toxic runoff that can potentially contaminate underground aquifers, streams, rivers, oceans, and indeed local communities. In fact, I met with the head of the incinerator last Saturday, and he told me that now the landfill at Sapan Hin in Phuket Town, which is where the incinerator and the landfill is now at full capacity. So they're considering sending landfill now up into Phang Nga province to be dumped. So our landfill is indeed full. We've seen a great change in waste attitudes, particularly over the last 3 or 4 months. I must say it's been fairly recent. But as much as 50% of our island's waste could be reduced by effective management. Similar examples of systems that have been in place already. Switzerland for 25 years. Curbside recycling in New Zealand, for example, reaches over 95% of all homes. And Scotland has a fantastic campaign which we're basing some advice on our local government on. It's called a Zero Waste campaign. And they indeed are aiming for zero waste in Scotland, which is quite ambitious. And waste as a hotel is a myriad forms. Food waste is a very big problem. And of course, your normal plastic waste, which now you're reducing by putting in your own bottling facility. Mm-hmm. And as you were saying, reducing the use of 250,000 plastic water bottles per year. What sort of volumes are you doing, are you aware of, and how are you currently dealing with your different forms of waste within the resort?
Well, I would say I believe we recycle nearly 100%. As I mentioned to you earlier, we recycle metal, batteries, paper, plastic, oil, organic waste. Everything is whether sold, recycle, or reuse. Or green waste, we reuse them to make compost for our own gardens, so that we don't have to buy as much fertilizer as we should. So we it's always since day one that it was important for us to separate them, and luckily there's a few local people actually from the communities that come and collect them and make money out of it. They buy to you at a very low cost, and they then reuse them or sell them at people specialists that buy this kind of metal waste. And so it's good to see that the community can live out of this, I've actually even follow our own waste, like the organic waste from the hotel. I wanted to understand better where they were going, and they go to a pig farm near hotel, which they're feeding around 400 pigs, and they buy the organic waste from a few hotels in Laguna and so on. And it was very interesting, and to be honest, I had a lot of respect for these people, because when you see the working condition they're living in, but they're doing it, they make a living out of it, and quite good one, I believe so, actually. But definitely a very hard work. The smell, I mean, you can imagine the condition are extreme. So we definitely support that. There's still more you can do, always, I believe so. Some waste that you cannot recycle, so you always try to think how can we reuse it. Luckily we have a second hotel, a boathouse you mentioned recently, so maybe some furniture that we don't use anymore at Trisar we can use in the other hotel, or you can just change the material and use it instead of using a bedroom, use it for a public area. So we are always very concerned before thinking, oh, this should go in a rubbish bin. Can we use it differently, in a different manner, and so on. Where we have a tree that falls off, happened recently. I've asked the team to cut it and use the trunk, and we use that now as shelves for our breakfast buffet, just to raise the food and use natural elements instead of getting rid of it. So there's always ideas you could use. I saw the video on your website, which this lady that collect waste on the beach, flip-flops and so on, and I make jewelry, and I'm meeting her at the end of this month, and hopefully I'd love to be able to sell a jewelry in our gallery, because I think it's extremely smart. She's obviously take the time to collect all this rubbish on the beach and reuse them in a fancy and attractive way.
Very good. Yeah, that's Kun Gan from Greenfins. Actually, she was here on Phuket when the tsunami came through, and as a result of the garbage being pushed into the ocean, and she started her dive cleanups and set up an NGO called Greenfins. She's been also the country coordinator for the International Coastal Conservancy. So she goes to quite a number of waste management, marine litter conferences around the world, recently in Korea. And she's been responsible for working with ICC to record the data actually that's collected on the beach. And we've been implementing a system of these beach cleaners which includes data collection. So we do actually track everything we collect, and we publish those data to ICC as part of an international database. But one of the things that we found is that we're trying to, similar as you are in a hotel, repurpose as much of the beach garbage as we possibly can, and it's a change of attitude from it being seen as beach garbage to be not trash but treasure. And Ghana's been great at collecting flip-flops and various other things, making jewelry, and they also have a program where they take flip-flops, of which we get many on the beaches. No idea where they come from, but we get hundreds and hundreds of flip-flops. And she takes them, they get mulched up in a machine, and they get put down into squares so they can be used as children's playground, like the sponge squares to break kids' falls when they're on swings. And so that's something fun that she's doing. But she's a great girl, and you'll do very well with her jewelry. That's fantastic. So waste under control. Lastly, let's just talk briefly about energy. I know you've been very keen on energy management systems.
Yes, we had the Bill Clinton Foundation that did a survey of the hotel a couple of years after we opened, and gave us a lot of great ideas of initiative we could implement, which we follow. We changed all our light bulbs to LED, and we changed 35,000 light bulbs, which I think is around 60% energy saving. We've put sensors in all the doors in all the bedroom of the guests, so after 5 minutes that the door's been open, the air conditioning will stop automatically. We put a small piece on the air conditioning. I think it's called 5 technology, which allows to reduce the energy consumption of each air conditioning by 20%. And all this initiative has been embraced by the hotel, and I recommend definitely, if your hotel hasn't been built in an eco-friendly thinking originally, to use those companies that have the know-how to come and survey your hotel and embrace it completely. It's always obviously easier when you build an hotel to be eco-friendly, but it's much harder when you've got a 20-year-old building which consume a lot of energy, because at those days we didn't think that way.
To do the refit, exactly. Thinking is changing, and changing very dramatically. Antoine, thank you very much for joining us today on Going Green.
Thank you for inviting me.
We really appreciate it. We've learnt a lot, and we hope to see you back again soon.
Sure.
And we'll find something new to talk about. I'm sure the hotel will continue to evolve and find new things to do green.
Thank you very much, and come to see us at Trisara. Welcome for Trisara Seafood, the brunch, and come and enjoy your beach.
Very good. Trisara.com, you can check it out. Reservation numbers there for restaurants, etc. But do take a look. It's a great spot. This is Nick Anthony with Antoine Mellon. We've been talking about green hotels. Welcome back to the Going Green Show, show number 81. And we've just had the pleasure of Antoine Mellon in the studio talking about green hotels, indeed what they're doing to make Phuket a better place. And it's fantastic to see hoteliers like Trisara with 300 employees really digging deep and educating them about sustainability, teaching them about island life and how indeed we can improve it, and working hard to get that education and knowledge into the community, and to also educate our local people and perhaps those that are not so in tune with what's happening on an international basis. Talking of international news, let's take a quick look at what's going on around the world this last week. There's been some cool stuff going on, and some rather surprising news. But firstly, let's talk about marine pollution. We've been talking about beach cleaning and some of the issues we've had with part-time cleanups and the need to go full-time with that beach cleanup. Indeed, plastic is now the foremost form of marine pollution. Of course, that's probably not surprising to you listeners, as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and others have now been very well promoted, and people are aware that in the oceans are these huge, large islands of plastic garbage that get caught up in currents and end up getting washed into beaches, often many thousands of kilometers away from where it was originally sourced. Researchers have attempted to remedy a knowledge gap on this plastic, and they've dubbed these areas of floating plastic debris the plastisphere, as it's a distinct enough community from the surrounding areas. Well, the 80% of the plastisphere is comprised of materials disposed onshore, and around 20% is coming from litter dumped from ships. Here on Phuket, I think the ratio is a little different. I think around 50% has been coming from the land, and about 50% coming from the 2,000 odd fishing boats that ply our west coast. In the decade from 97 to 2007, there was a 500% increase in plastic debris making its way into the central Pacific Gyre off Japan. In fact, the amount of plastic in water has increased by a factor of 10 over those years, and the problem is only getting worse. In the first decade of this 21st century, more plastic was manufactured than in the entire history of plastic production. So if we're not eagle-eyed about the plastic trash, particularly on the side of our roads, and the type of programs that fishing boats currently do or don't have, and that is they throw everything off the boats, then we're going to continue to complicate our oceans and indeed poison our fish. So be vigilant, help us to clean the beaches, and please stop littering where you can. There was an article this week talking of marine trash of a beach cleanup in far north Queensland, where they collected 7,000 plastic thongs, as they're called in Australia, or plastic flip-flops as they are in this part of the world. Actually, only 18 people, sea rangers, spent 5 days combing more than 11 kilometres of beaches. That's up at Cape York in the very north of Australia. And they gathered a whopping 3,700 kilograms of junk. Amazing. 4,500 shoes last year and 7,100 this year. They got 870 cigarette lighters and over 2,500 gillnet floats. So it's a problem not just here in Phuket, but a problem all over the world. Looking at coal, coal's share of total domestic power generation in the first 4 months of 2013, this is talking about the US, averaged nearly 40%. Actually, that compared with 35% during the same period last year. So unfortunately, coal in America has continued to go up. And we've seen calls here in Krabi to build a coal-fired power plant. That would be disastrous for our area and indeed for the Andaman Sea. Indeed, the South does need more power. We saw a big power brownout recently, and with the growth in population in this part of the world, the demand for more power is going to become ever present. However, sustainable sources of power is indeed the way to go. Coal, if we were to put a coal-fired power plant in Krabi, it would be devastating for Phang Nga Bay. And indeed, when the wind does blow from the east, that coal dust and pollution coming out of that power plant would come straight to Phuket. Greenpeace recently did a rock climb in Krabi in support of a coal-free area. And it was interesting that Greenpeace this last week actually upped the ante on a new cause, and that's saying no to Arctic exploration, particularly in the likes of Shell. They Thursday morning, 6 activists scaled the Shard, which is the largest building in Europe. They're in the city of London. It took them about 14 or 15 hours to climb to the top of this building. Of course, were arrested at the top. They unfold a banner at the top to say no to Arctic exploration. The poles of our planet remain the only major regions untouched by the pollution and degradation that inevitably follows in humans' footsteps. That alone is really sufficient reason for protection of the Arctic from these oil drillers. Well, if you think that sounds impossibly idealistic, consider the fact that the Antarctic already has protection and that the world's nations may well, on Tuesday next week, declare the largest marine reserve in the world around the southern continent. It can be done. Well done, Greenpeace, and we expect to see more feedback, discussion, and protests regarding the proposed Krabi power plant. Connie Hedegaard is the climate commissioner, and she has called for development banks with a combined annual lending pot of 130 billion euros, that's a year, to end support for fossil fuels in their energy lending policy reviews. Quite serious news. There is a growing call to stop the financing of non-sustainable power. And here in Asia, we're on the slower end of that curve, but over the next 2 or 3 years, expected to ramp up in this part of the world. Here in Phuket, we're blessed with sunshine. Solar power is the easiest way to do it. Our island currently uses about 270 megawatts of power, and that could easily be fed by 3 80-megawatt solar power plants up in Phang Nga. And indeed, that would directly feed into Phuket and would effectively take Phuket off the grid. For those of you who don't know, our current power comes mostly from central Thailand and comes by way of the eastern seaboard. And most of our power in Thailand is currently coming from natural gas. New Zealand this week rejected Japan's claim to be legally whaling in the Antarctic as an attempt to reduce the global whaling treaty to an industry cartel. Over the last 26 years, more than 10,000 whales have been killed in this program, including 18 fin whales. Australia has told the court in The Hague that Japan's scientific program is commercial whaling cloaked in the lab coat of science. New Zealand's intervention came in the third week of the hearings, ahead of the appearance next week of Australian Attorney General Mark Dreyfus, which will be putting forward final submissions. This is to stop Japan whaling in the Antarctic. Sydney has recently become home to the biggest green wall installation in Australia, amid a wider campaign to green the cityscape. It's just the sort of thing that we need here on Phuket. Currently, 15% of Sydney is blanketed in green canopy, but the City Council wants to increase coverage to 23% by 2030. There are similar campaigns in other capitals, and an even wider global trend to boost the number of green spaces in urban centres. Green roofs and walls officer at City Council, Lucy Sharman, said the city is on track to reach its green canopy target, but more green roofs and walls need to be installed. That's good news. Actually, Brisbane going for 51% green canopy coverage and has already planted 2 million trees between 2008 and 2012. In Melbourne, my hometown, 23% canopy coverage currently, and they're targeting 40% by 2040. In Melbourne, there are 87 green roofs, and they have indeed planted 77,000 trees since 2008. So good news for Australia, and as I say, just the sort of thing we need here on Phuket. More trees, more green walls, and less building and less white. PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, is about to shed its sexy models for an in-your-face campaign aimed at eliciting shock and guilt. Striking photos of animals being skinned have been doctored to show well-to-do consumers on the scene at the skinning, even as they wear or tote products made from the skinned animal. The slogan is, when you buy it, you become part of it. The aim of the new ads, which will debut in New York City during Fashion Week in September, is to make folks feel far less comfortable about wearing, whether it be alligator belts, fur hats, or fur jackets. So well done, PETA. Great cause. Stay tuned. This is Nick Anthony. We are indeed enjoying a Saturday afternoon here.
The 80s, 90s, noughties, and now. Phuket's Live 89.5.
And that was Tears for Fears with Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I feel reading a lot of the news, particularly the business news, that's exactly what they want to do. But in the face of doing that, they're destroying the planet. Well, one place where we're seeing a wider protection is great news. This last couple of days is Ramsar, which is the Secretariat for the Convention on Wetlands of International Importance, has announced that two small archipelago systems with coral reefs here in Thailand have just been listed as wetland sites of international significance. The two sites are a 374-hectare site in Nakhon Si Thammarat, and importantly, the Koh Rako Pratong Archipelago, which is in Phang Nga to the north of Phuket. That's a bigger one that's some 19,600 hectares in size. Thailand now has 13 wetlands of international importance, covering a surface area of nearly 400,000 hectares, and that's been put in place since the convention started in 1998. These two new sites are listed as the 12th and 13th protected wetland areas here in Thailand. The Phang Nga archipelago consists of two islands in the Andaman Sea. It features a rare and complex habitat including grasslands, peat swamp forests, freshwater pools, evergreen forests, mangrove forests, extensive seagrass beds, and coral reefs. It's a beautiful place. It's actually an area of protection specifically for turtles, including the green turtle, olive ridley, hawksbill, and leatherback. It's also the last remaining site in Thailand known to support a significant breeding population of the vulnerable bird called the lesser adjutant. Important mammal species include the endangered pangolin, a small samba deer, and of course the dugong. There's 700 hectares of seagrass, which is a very important nursery for over 270 species of coastal fish and several other marine species. Good news, that's to the north of Phuket. Well, I'm running out of time. It's 6 minutes to 5. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to go through too much detail in this weekend's paper, but do take a look at it. There are some good articles on the environment, in particular on page 2 talking about nature. A Bang Kanun forest preserve in Talang is believed to have been almost wiped out by encroachment. The Vice-Governor has been looking at it. There's over 800 rai of property and 16% is unfortunately only left as untouched forest. Go Eco Phuket, in honour of Queen Sirikit's 81st birthday, there will be a large underwater cleanup. This will be aiming for a new world record. So great news. There'll be articles in the paper over the next few weeks about that. Also on page 6, lifestyle, discussion on the blue list there, which is highlighting Thailand's shark fin-free hotels, which we launched in Outrigger 2 weeks ago. There's also, if you go to myseek.org, you can follow the links from that front page through to today's radio program and all of the articles that have been read out today and the news, including information from Trisara, is all up on that website. And moving down on the economy, on page 14 of this weekend's paper, there's an announcement that on July the 25th to the 28th for 3 days at Royal Phuket City Hotel, there'll be a building expo, with a range of eco-building and sustainable products, so do check that out. On Society, page 5, Phuket Town has set up a safety zone with the support of 30 volunteers that will be bike riding on regular patrols. That's good news. Looking at well-being, on page 2 of the paper, there's an article about polluters on Bang Tao Canal. Indeed, they're getting rough and they're getting tough on polluters as they now make their way in 1.6 kilometres up the Klong from Bang Tao Beach and tapping polluters. Dengue fever is still an issue. Figures showing, according to page 5 on Lifestyle, that dengue fever is going to surpass 100,000 people in Thailand in 2013. It's actually a problem all over the world, and in particular Southeast Asia in the last 3 months. Malaysia's critical. Singapore has seen 500 cases, and indeed the World Health Organization has labeled dengue the world's fastest spreading tropical disease, representing a pandemic threat to 2/5 of the world. About 50 to 100 million dengue infections occur every year. So take care out there, make sure you keep your houses clean, your gardens clean, and pick up your trash. And lastly, just repeating what I said earlier on beach cleaning, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in front of the temple on the south end of Kamala Beach, there'll be a beach clean from 9 till 10. At 10 o'clock, there is then a beach clean on Bang Tao in front of the Best Western Hotel on the south end of Bang Tao Beach. Looking for supporters, around 10 people confirmed so far. And then on Monday, July the 15th at 10 a.m., there'll be a cleanup on the Kamala North Canal. That's in front of the Swiss Hotel. So 3 beach cleanups, 2 tomorrow morning, 9 and 10 o'clock, and then Monday, 10 o'clock, Kamala North Canal. Thanks for all your support in helping to make sure Phuket is a clean and green place. Together, we can definitely make Phuket a better place, and we can help to support our dolphins, our dugongs, our turtles in the ocean, and to ensure that you as tourists come to a beautiful place. This is Nick Anthony signing out for Going Green, show number 81. I do hope you've enjoyed your show. Have a fantastic weekend. We've got a full lineup of shows, starting now with the Best of Breakfast from Sam and Kirsty, Dance Anthems from Steve from 7 till 10, Saturday Night Fever from 10 till 12. Tomorrow in the morning, Nick will be on with What's On in the Weekend, following Non-Stop Music. He's on at 10 till 12. Then we've got Weekend Brunch with Jason Wilder back in from 12 until 3. A repeat of the Phuket News Radio from 3 till 4. Mellow Moments with Andy Saunders from 4 till 6. And then we go into Sunday Night Chill from 6 until 9 p.m. Following that, we've got Non-Stop Music taking us through to Monday morning. Get out on the beaches, clean up some plastic, and do be safe out there. Wear a helmet if you're on a bike, put your seatbelt on if you're on a car, and watch for rain the next couple of days. It's on its way.